Hello everybody, Galactic Gaming here, and welcome to my premium cannon rapid fire build featuring the Achilles Miracle Worker Heavy Destroyer. Now, going off topic a little bit, I was never fond of the Achilles. I wasn't around when Star Trek Dominion Wars released, so when I saw this get announced in the Heritage Starship bundle, I just didn't understand it. I mean, I get it, some people really do have fond memories of the ship, but I just don't like the look of it. It's flat. It's flat, it's stout, the nacelles look ridiculous on this thing, and I just don't like the look of it, but apparently a lot of you like the look of it even more than I do, but more power to you, I suppose. And the stats on this thing, when I was trying to record a video on the Heritage Starship bundle, but ended up not releasing because Metal Disc TV decided it didn't want to work for me that day, I went over how I didn't like the stats on this thing, mainly because of the double Miracle Worker setup. And I might have to take that back, because even though I didn't use all the Miracle Worker seats, they ended up turning out pretty useful. Anyway, let's look at the build now and fix that up. Fairly standard rapid fire setup in the forward weapons. We've got the Terran Task Force phase dual heavy cannons, the Agony phaser quad cannons, the Agony phaser dual heavy cannons, and the Wide Arc phase dual heavy cannons from the low-buy store. These are all here just because of the amount of damage output they do, and the phase cannons because they deal a nice debuff on an enemy hit if their nearest shield facing is down. And in my fifth weapon slot, I've got the Maelstrom Quantum Torpedo Launcher because I rarely get an opportunity to fly around with the Maelstrom because I do a lot of fire at will builds. Oh, not fire at will builds, just I fly around a lot of fire at will ships. That's better. And, you know, you can't use Maelstroms with fire at will, so whenever I get the opportunity to weapon a Maelstrom, I'm going to take that opportunity. And in the after weapons, I've got the Advanced Inhibiting Phaser Heavy turret for the debuff, and the Trilithium Enhanced Phaser turret for the Procket the extra haste. For my drivetrain, it's pretty much a standard on most of my builds. The Elite Fleet Intervention Printer Deflector Array, the Prevailing Innovated Impulse Engines, and the two-piece Mycelial Harmonic Warp Core and Shields. Just for the two-piece, it gives me extra hull regeneration, and also the fact that the shields do an extra bit of damage to enemy shields. In my experimental weapons, I've got the Prototype Phaser Hex Cannons, which comes from this ship. Now, originally I was upset at the fact that these weren't a regular starship weapon like the quad cannons were, because I really wanted to be able to put these on any ship. But I'm actually glad they made this an experimental weapon, because the stats of this thing, this thing hits like a freaking truck. I've seen this thing deal comparable damage to the Plasma Incendiary on Bombardment, which is the best experimental weapon in the game. So this thing is arguably now takes over the Gold-type Psionic Resonator as the most powerful experimental weapon in the C-Store. So if you need a powerful experimental weapon for your phaser builds, I would definitely recommend picking this up. My devices is just the usual standard. The Kobayashi Maru Transporter for the random buffs. I've got the Type 14 Shuttle Support Squadron. I know you don't need to put this in your device slots, I just have it here just because I prefer it in there. The Turium Surplus for the Speed Boost, Reactive Armor Catalyst for the extra hull heals, and advanced energy amplifiers for the bonus energy weapon damage and shield penetration. My universal and engineering consoles, I've just got a bunch of phaser ISO mags because whenever you're on an energy weapon build, you generally want to be putting as many ISO mags as you can on it. In the science consoles, first I've got enhanced induction coils, which comes from the I think this comes from one of the tier 1 birds of prey. I'm not entirely sure. If I'll link up the I'll put up the name of the ship in the when I'm editing this video, but I've just got this here just for the extra weapon, engine, and auxiliary power settings, and the maximum buffs to those power settings. And that's just because I'm also running the Fleet Power Network Array, and I need something to buff up my auxiliary power just a bit more. I've got the DPRM here. This should be fairly obvious for the bonus damage and the extra survivability. I've actually got the Micro Quantum Torpedoes Phalanx Array, which comes from this ship. The PAPs on it are currently bugged at the moment. It's showing a whole bunch of stuff that it shouldn't be showing, but the only two PAPs that should be showing on here is a 10 max power to weapon subsystems for 30 seconds when entering combat, and plus 20 power to weapon subsystems for 30 seconds when entering combat. I've been told in the PvP setting, this console hits like a truck, and I've yet to test it out in the in a good setting in the PvE, but I'm hoping that this thing does a decent amount of damage as well, so we'll see what it does there. My tactical consoles, I got the Agony Redistributor just so that because this is a single target build, I need something to spread out my damage a bit more, and the Agony Redistributor excels at that. I've got the Subspace Factor Tunneling Field off the Woven Carrier. This is just to reduce my cooldown to my Universal consoles. You've got the Immolating Phaser Lance to be able to stack up Universal designs, and also the massive amount of phaser damage it does. And I've got 2 Energetic Protomatter Infusers for the extra phaser damage and projectile weapon damage. For my captain specializations, I've just got the standard Intel Primary for space flanking and Temporal Operative Secondary for Entropic Rider. My personal space traits, first I've got Superior Cannon Training for the bonus cannon weapon damage, Adaptive Offense for the crit chance it turns into crit severity, Context of Kinks for the second damage resistance rating or bonus damage, depending if I took damage or not, the Boimer Effect to help my bridge officer cooldowns, Intelligence Aided Attaché for covering my captain ability recharge whenever I get a critical strike with my weapons, Inspiration Leader for the chance to get plus 10 to my starship skills for 10 seconds whenever I activate a bridge officer ability, Fleet Coordinator for the bonus damage per team member, Regenerative Control Synergy for the extra survivability, Turn Targeting Systems for the extra crit severity, A Good Day to Die to let me go down fighting whenever I want, and Unconventional Systems to recharge my Universal consoles a bit faster. Now, looking into the Starship traits, this is pretty much why I made this thing a premium build, because this has legendary traits from 4 different legendary ships. Hell, the damn firing mode extended for rapid fire comes from a legendary ship of its own. And that's Go for the Kill, and that comes from the legendary Divinium Vanguard pilot attack ship. I think that's what it's called. It's such a long name, I'll never be able to remember it. And this just increases the duration of cannon rapid fire by 3 seconds whenever I get a critical hit with it. Next is Thirst of Battle, and this comes from the legendary Ball Task. Using cannon firing mode or a cloak gives me 240% turn rate strength and flight speed, and 40% increased damage for 15 seconds. Emergency Weapon Cycle. This is just here on any energy weapon build for their minus weapon power cost and 20% firing cycle haste. Temporal Tunneling, which gives me extra weapons haste from exotic or temporal operative bridge abilities. On this build, it's only going to be triggering from Tractor Beam and Tractor Beam Catapult. But this just gives me 100% firing cycle haste for energy weapons for 5 seconds whenever I activate one of those. Ship Alignment comes from the legendary Avenger. This just gives me extra crit severity that stacks up to 4 times whenever I activate an emergency power bridge ability. Universal Designs from the Crossfield Refit, that just gives me extra crit chance for crit severity when I've activated a Universal console. And it's Best Hope of the Empire, which may seem out of place, considering I don't have Beam Overload or Lance abilities, but for some reason this trait actually triggers off of the Immolating Phaser Lance. And plus 10% bonus all damage and plus the 50,000 temporary hit points is certainly not something to sneer at. Oh, and this ship comes from the legendary Galaxy Dreadnought. For my space reputation, this is pretty much the usual. I've just got Precision for the extra crit chance, Adapted Targeting Systems for the extra crit severity, Energy Refrequency over the hull healing, TARS Duality for the extra crit chance based on my hull capacity, and Magnified Firepower, which just gives me extra bonus weapon damage. In my bridge officer stations, I've just got Jam Sensors, Scramble Sensors, and Tractor Beam 1 to trigger unconventional systems and Regenerative Control Synergy. Photonic Officer 2 to help the recharge time of my bridge officers. In my in this engineering seat that it's a universal seat, but I'm using it for engineering. I just got Emergency Powder Weapons 1 and Emergency Powder Engines 2 to buff the trigger ship of the line and also to buff those subsystems a bit. And also Emergency Powder Weapons is also triggering Emergency Weapon Cycle. In my commander tactical / miracle worker seat, first I've got aligned shield frequencies to buff my shield regeneration and shield resistance. Mix armament synergy 1 to buff my whenever I activate a beam, cannon, mine, or torpedo, I'll get 30% bonus damage for the other 3 types of weapons. So this is just going to be mainly buffing up my turrets and cannons. Although it might buff up the Maelstrom too, which is helpful. Narrow Sensor Bands 3, which just gives me extra bonus energy weapon damage depending on how close I am to the target. And Cannon Rapid Fire 3, because this is a Cannon Rapid Fire build, I should probably get the best version of this up, shouldn't I? Lieutenant Commander Tactical Seat, first I've got Chemosite Lace Weaponry 1 for the extra radiation damage, Tractor Beam Catapult 2 to trigger Temporal Tunneling, and Torpedo Spread 3 to help off the Maelstrom torpedoes. And in my duty officers, first I've got 3 energy weapons officers that say crit severity. I've got the emergency con hologram that reduces evasive maneuvers whenever emergency mount engine is activated. I've got a space warfare specialist which does increase damage against the Borg. And I've also got a warp core engineer that improves has a chance of temporarily improving my ship power and use of any emergency power ability. And since I'm using 2 of them, I'm going to be rocking this guy fairly often. So now that you know what's on this build, let's take this thing through a run of IC, and I'll show you the past, and we'll show you just how well this build can do. Stay tuned! Despite having 2 deaths, this build still managed to deal 590k DPS, which for a single target rapid fire build, especially in the pug run, is incredibly well done of it. As we go into the player analysis, we can see that the top damage dealer was the prototype phaser hexacannons. I said this thing hits like a truck, and you can just see it right here. It had a max one hit of 626k, which for an experimental weapon is just nuts. Underneath that, we had the Terran Task Force dual heavy phaser cannons, which did 76k. Agony Redistributor on the Borg Human Nanite Transform, which did 71 and 53k respectively. The Agony Phaser dual heavy cannons on Rapid Fire 3 did 50k. Quad phaser cannons somehow did less, and that at 46k. And I'm surprised to see the Maelstrom torpedo down here and only doing 43k. I managed to fire that off twice in that run, and I don't know why, but lately it feels like the Maelstrom torpedoes have not been doing the damage they should be doing. I don't know whether that's just me being able to touch Maelstrom torpedo timings, but I just feel like they're just not doing the damage they should be doing. Anyway, we've got the wide arc phase dual heavy cannons under rapid fire 3 doing 40k, and then the turrets doing 19 and 15k. And then we've got the Seeking Micro Quantum Torpedo, Targeted Micro Quantum Torpedo. And as we scroll down here, we've got a whole bunch of different Micro Quantum Torpedo detonations just spread out all over this pass. But I managed to count them up, and this console did 43k DPS, which for a console is pretty impressive. So that was my Achilles rapid fire build. I want to thank you all so much for watching until the end. It really does help out my channel, and I would really like to start making some money off this thing, so any amount of support you can get by watching my videos is greatly appreciated. Let me know what you think in the comments. Remember to like, subscribe, join my Discord server, or join a continuing Discord server, depending on which shenanigans you want. Anyway, my name is Galactic Gaming. Until next time, have a happy day, and I'll catch you all later. Goodbye!